uh, most organizations, struggle with the fact whether it's structured, semi-structured, unstructured data of it, if it's sitting in data silos. From an unstructured standpoint, with the rise of SaaS applications, being able to find the information, the answers has become a challenge. And why is that? It's the advent of Office 365 and the Google Suite, it's CRM, SaaS applications, it's communication applications, and it's effectively creating multiple points for you to find information, really to be effective in your role, regardless of like what business unit or organization you might sit in. And our founders saw this as a problem worth solving, and that's effectively kind of the birth of Glean is coming at this from a enterprise knowledge management standpoint and solution of where we started as an enterprise search company. As generative AI has come to the forefront and is bringing a lot of promises of like what this can do around efficiency, it's important to start asking some questions of how would we actually do this? And so we know that large language models are powerful, but they inherently lack enterprise awareness, enterprise knowledge. They don't have any concept into who the actual user is, and they're really only as good as the underlying information, right, that a large language model sits on top of. It's important that once we have this construct, that you would take the time to put the training into a model on the data where it would be centralized. And then the advent of an architectural concept called retrieval augmented generation has become available, but it's a concept that has some particularities to it to be applied appropriately to not just get the results that you want, but to actually do it at scale. And so this problem exists, and we saw this here at Glean as a huge opportunity to bring value within the federal space as well as the public sector. But the question still remains is, if we do this, right, what are the benefits? What are the gains that we're going to get within harnessing the knowledge and answers from our enterprise data? So let me introduce you to Glean. So we build this as an AI-powered work assistant. But at the core of it, we started out as an enterprise search company. What makes us uniquely different, and we're going to double click into all this, is that we could take a connector-based approach, which helps us build a knowledge graph. It brings enterprise awareness to the organization. And now when we combine that with large language models, that brings enterprise awareness to that language model. So it means you can trust the answers that you're getting because it's coming from its corpus. And we're not training on your data, we're training on the knowledge graph itself. So let's dig in a little further here on Glean and just kind of set the context of our story. Our founders came from Google. So when you're an AI assistant, an enterprise search company, it's a great birthright to have. We've done incredibly well with our last Series D round of funding. We're well founded by key stakeholders throughout the VC community as well as throughout the banking community. And we're making waves here with leading organizations adopting Glean organization-wide. So let me just kind of set the context of how we see Glean fitting into an organization. And we really do feel it's horizontal reach. So I'm going to take a very generic approach to this. So just think of a general business, if you will, where they have all their different lines of businesses. So finance is certainly concerned with what's happening with the numbers and kind of memorializing the revenue there. Whereas, customer support has a very different function of making sure that all their clients or customers are getting what they need. Both very integral parts, but information is going to be specific to them. Data is going to be very specific to them, and the answers they're going to need are very specific to them. Glean sits in the middle, effectively between the users, these business units, and all the different applications throughout an organization. So one could certainly make the argument that communication and content is, could be certainly consumed by every group up there on the top where they'd want to be able to find and search for answers. But when we move to the right, the last three boxes around business applications or people apps, IT apps, it gets more specific into the use cases. So we can see people in engineering who need to answer questions of like, what's the latest revision on the last workflow of the sprint? That might be held within a couple different applications. It could be held in a Microsoft Teams channel, it could be in the Jira, could be in the code repository. But when you go to ask Glean this question, it's pulling that information from there to spit you an answer right in real time to give you an update on like where that project is, because it's effectively taking this connector-based approach. So we're going to dive in here to the architecture so that we understand underlying how Glean is doing this, bringing us knowledge, bringing us the answers that we need. So let's start from the bottom here, this architectural layer cake slide that we have. So if we talk about infrastructure, it's important to note that Glean can be deployed either in our cloud, SaaS hosted, or it can be deployed in your cloud, in your virtual private cloud. So that's a really unique offering, and each deployment is single tenant. And that is huge when it comes to clearing security hurdles throughout organizations. I mentioned that we take a connector-based approach. Today we have 100 plus native connectors built. And so this serves for two purposes. Purpose one is that we're going to index the information at the application level. And after that, we will consistently crawl it. So what we're doing is we're effectively getting the most up-to-date, information that's happening throughout your organization. So we're not relying on the customer to put their data into a central repository. We are going to where the data lives at the application level. And I mentioned that these connectors are real time. And why does that matter? Because when we start to think about looking for answers, looking for information, looking for documents, privacy and governance comes into play. And we have the ability to integrate with existing identity access management solution. Glean has real-time permissions enforcement. So whatever you're able to do at the application level, whatever you can see within OneDrive, for example, is what you're going to be able to see and do in Glean. And the minute that's changed at the application level, it's reflected back in Glean. So this has been a very pleasant surprise for many security and compliance and governance teams as they've started to take a look at it. So we've connected. We have governance in place, we have privacy in place. So what else makes Glean really unique? And it's the way that we conduct in our knowledge management and do our search, right? So we build an enterprise knowledge graph, and we're doing this with an AI-powered approach. We use a hybrid search methodology, which is vector, it is user-based search, it is keyword-based search, and then we combine people data to that. And so we now start to understand who maybe Ryan is in the organization, or maybe we know who Simon is in the organization. We know what these people do, what content that they work on, and what roles that they do, so that their search experience, their assistant experience is hyper-personalized, and they're getting the information that they need, which has typically been one of the downsides to trying to solve for this knowledge management situation in a past life is, we can find some things, but we can't find it all, and it doesn't feel hyper personalized. The enterprise knowledge graph is what cuts the deficit to that, and makes Glean, incredibly unique. We are leveraging a retrieval augmented generation architectural framework underneath this. So a lot of the things that we kind of rose as questions of how do you do this, maybe people trying to do it on their own, Glean has now commoditized this in our SaaS offering, and we're delivering it where you're not responsible for tuning or tweaking. You're really just trying to gain, insight and knowledge and answers from all of your data. Last but not least, off to the right-hand side, if we start to think about it, we've built a knowledge graph. We have instant access and insight to our corpus. Wouldn't it be nice if we could build custom AI applications on top of the knowledge graph? Well, the good news is you can with Glean's AI App Builder and Tools SDK Kit. So what are we seeing from this? We're seeing customers create custom teams and Slack bots so that in maybe public channels, when people go to ask questions, the Glean bot will come in on the back end and actually answer those questions for you. We have situations where customers are using Glean to open up Jira tickets or maybe Zendesk tickets. So where the puck is going for Glean is the assistant's not just going to provide you answers, it's going to start to perform functions on your behalf as well. And again, this can't be stressed enough, but Glean is built on trust. Security first. was our number one priority as we were building this out. And you can see here some of the accolades here, whether it be our SOC 2 Type 2 certification, looking at our flexible hosting options, and for our counterparts over in EMEA, which was really important to them, our GDPR compliance. We mentioned our connector approach. Here's just a small snippet of some of the native connectors that we've built out today. So you can see a lot of familiar logos. And you might be saying, who's starting to use Glean? So today, here is effectively maybe our NASCAR slide, right, of some of the leading organizations and teams that are starting to use Glean, organizational wide, from multiples of different diverse use cases, from product engineering, customer support, sales, HR, research, etc. So that concludes kind of setting the framework of Glean. What I'd like to do is move over and actually show you the product if we could. All right. Simon, can you see my Glean tab?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so this is Glean. I am running it as a web browser extension today. As you see up here, you can run it here as an API extension. For Mac, we have a desktop app, and we also have mobile. But for me, the most easiest way is every time I tab out here in Chrome, I have Glean. This looks very Google-like, and that was purposeful. That's where our founders came from. It's very simple. It's very clean. So let's walk around a little bit so that I can show you some of the capabilities and some of the features here. So in the top right-hand corner where my mouse is, as I'm clicking on this, it is a signed-on experience. It's inheriting the roles and permissions that I have throughout the Glean organization as a sales leader here. If I'm going to click into my profile here, it's going to bring up who I am in the organization, who I report to, who's reporting to me. It's going to show me some related folks on my team and some of the activity that we've been working on. And again, because we're grabbing people data, I can come in here and we can build an org chart out here in Glean. And this does this, day one, once we start getting Glean set up in an organization. But let's come back in here to the main page, and I've gone into the more informational mode. And what you might start to say to yourself is, wow, this has almost got an intranet type of feel. And that's purposeful. So as you can see, I have some suggested things that might be important to me. I have my most recent searches, and I have areas here where people have actually mentioned me in documents that I might need to go back into and check. I can see what's trending within my organization, and we have a place here for announcements. So in some cases, we've actually seen Glean brought in to be an intranet replacement, and then they get the benefits of Search and Assistant on top of that. We talked through the people data. We have the ability to build collections. So one of the things that's important about this is if we think about having a single source of truth for maybe a topic or for maybe a department, I'm going to come in here and I'm actually going to type in GCN, Google Cloud Next, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to look for my collection. And what we have now is a collection that's been built of our Salesforce campaign. We've got our documentation here for FAQ about this event. I've got an event that we're doing here. So we've got a collection here, but I can see my registration link. People want to add email signatures. Anything you would need to know about us and our presence at GCN here internally as a Glean employee, I'm going to be able to see this here in a collection. So incredibly powerful. But let's start through and show you the power of what we can do here. So I'm going to start out with some Glean specific searches so we can show you the power of our connectors. And then I'm going to move into some use cases I think that might resonate with our audience here from the federal and public sector. So one of the things that makes Glean unique is our API approach and how we index. So I'm going to start searching for the API index, which is a very technical facing document. And as you remember, we build this knowledge graph, so it understands who I am in the organization. So the first document that I get is an external facing document because I'm on the go-to-market team. Glean is taking the assumption here that I'm probably going to want to share this with a potential prospect or customer. And that assumption would be correct, because my SE or my engineering team, when they go to search, they're going to see more internally facing documents that are going to be giving them guidance around this. So we can obviously see our search results over here, but more importantly, just this search alone vetted 25,000 results. As we scroll to the right-hand side over here, you can start to see the level of connectors that I have permissions to. So for example, we talked about the ability to bring Glean right to the end users, where they want it and see it. So we talked about our web browser extension, talked about, our API extension. We talked about the desktop and mobile app. But what if I, come down here and I go into Confluence? So I'm going to actually filter by Confluence. I'm actually going to go into this page here, and a couple interesting things happen. So I'm here on Confluence, and what I could do is on a Mac, press Command J, and I get the Glean sidebar. So a couple things are happening here. You see that the Glean Assistant is starting to summarize this Confluence page for me, which is beautiful. So I don't have to go dig in to potentially a 128-page document. We'll come out of that. But maybe I'm not super thrilled with the native search experience within Confluence. We've taken the liberty and made the choice that we want to actually embed Glean behind Confluence, so it becomes our search solution. So maybe I want to know about developer onboarding. I can come in here and search, and I'm getting a very Glean-like experience here just within Confluence alone. So we're giving you optionality for you to be able to find the information and the answers that you need. And so that is, effectively the power of search. What happens though, if maybe in our search bar here, we decide that we want to, ask a question of it? Glean can do that too. So we'll show you this here in a second. What is QE? So this is going to be very specific to Glean, and a lot of you are probably wondering, what is QE? At Glean, we've chosen that we want to control the specific answer that's given. And so we have a capability within Glean for all of our customers to provide answers. And Glean here is showing me that QE is query endpoint. And this is important for two reasons. One is we do have the ability, if we want to control the answer that you get. But two, it understands specific nomenclature that's unique to the Glean organization, or could be unique to the customer. And if anything we know about the Fed space, they love their acronyms. So this plays very, very well. We're going to show this here in just a second. So I wanted to highlight that we can really understand specific, semantics and nomenclature, really understand the business, and it all comes from the knowledge graph that Glean is building. All right. So we're going to come back in here to our search experience, and maybe I want to say DOJ agency. Let's see what comes back from that. Beautiful. So we've got 163 different results. The top one here looks to be the document that I'm looking for. What I'd like to do here is I'd actually like to make sure I don't feel like really digging into this document. And the reason being, it's 230 pages. So Glean is over here giving me a preview of this document, so that in the event that maybe I want to come into the table of contents, I could check out to make sure it is. But on the right-hand side, Glean Assistant's actually summarizing this in real time as we speak, so that I can get a very, very quick snapshot. So if we think about people with roles that have to constantly comb through documentation to abstract and get a look for, supporting cases or supporting research, Glean Assistant and its summarization feature is really, really powerful. So one of the things that we can do over here is we can interact with this document. So I'm going to ask a question. So I'm going to ask, what are the top management and performance challenges facing the Department of Justice based on this report? And so what's happening right now is the power of Glean is we are effectively conducting a search that's going through the retrieval part of RAG using a large language model. We are large language model agnostic. We, under the covers and Glean hosted, use GPT-4 and GPT Turbo, but we allow customers, provided that it meets its spec, to bring their own large language model to Glean. So this open agnostic approach has been very, very helpful. So as we can see here, Glean Assistant has come and answered my question around the top challenges here, right, that the DOJ is facing. And it's actually done a really nice job, not just of summarizing, but of organizing the data here into effectively 7 different points. And so this demonstrates us the ability to not just find the information that we're needing, but we can get a quick snapshot of it, and then we can start to interact with the documents. So right now, what we've done is we've given you an overview of Glean, the interface. We've started to do some searches. We've started to show where we can plug Glean into other areas. Let's move to our assistant experience. So for a lot of you, this might feel and might look a little bit like the ChatGPT-like experience. That's very intentional, right? We want customers to have, effectively the ability to kind of go in and know how to work and operate things right from the get-go. So we're going to kick off here a few questions. And the first thing I want to know is, I want them to summarize ECAS and list the benefits, as bullet points. So we're going to kick this off here with Glean Assistant. We've taken the liberty of working with our partners here at Turbo Federal to prepare for this webinar, where we wanted to take some specific documentation, we put it into our corpus so that we could show the power of Glean in a more Fed-specific use case here. So what Assistant has done for us now is it's gone and I just typed in an acronym around ECAS, and it's telling me, right, this is a courts and appeals system here, and it's giving me the benefits here in a bullet point format, because those are the instructions. Now, what I'd like to highlight is one of the obstacles or potential hurdles that organizations face when implementing generative AI into their organization is, can I trust the answers that I'm getting? And Glean has a really unique approach, and it's based on the fact that we started as a search company. We started as our unique differentiator in building a knowledge graph through a RAG architecture is that we cite our sources. We're making references to where we're getting this information. So as you can see here, we have 14 different areas where we are pulling this information from. And then as we provide our answer, we can see here that we're getting it from a few different resources here. So this is incredibly powerful, especially in highly regulated industries where they need to be able to document and show that they can trust the answers that they need. Glean is effectively citing its homework as we go along. So that's one of the huge unique differentiators. Is right now, Glean is the only one in the marketplace doing that.
And you didn't have to tell the system where to look for this answer, Ryan, right? It could have been in SharePoint. It could have been in a file system buried somewhere in some, file structure, or someone's Teams repository, right? Or Slack. It didn't matter where. You didn't need to know where it was stored, right? So that's important,
Yeah.
I think.
That's a really great point, Simon. I appreciate you kind of highlighting that, because I think we've all been in those situations of, I'm trying to do something. Was that through Slack, or was that through email? Is it sitting in Drive, or is that in SharePoint? I can't remember. Glean takes that guesswork out of it. If you have an understanding of what you're trying to find, whether you go through the assistant experience or the search experience, Glean, as long as it's connected, will go find it for you. And so that's the beautiful thing.
Yeah, and then a lot of the agencies, I'll just piggyback on that, have so much documentation that is in a SharePoint system somewhere, and it's just not organized. And when new staff join the team, it takes a long time to find documentation that's necessary for their job, and it slows down, the effectiveness of new staff. And so you kind of cutting out a lot of time with a solution like this. If you just and it, like, if you also can mention about the permissions as well. So you were able to find this because you have permissions to this folder wherever it's being stored. you're using the same permissions as your existing organization. So that's another important, I think, distinction too to highlight.
Yeah, I love that you pointed that out, Simon. I mean, so effectively today, I can only search for or get answers based on the level of permissions that I have within my corpus. And that would be the same for any user at Glean and effectively any of our customers. And so it does a couple things. One is it builds trust within our security, compliance, and governance teams of deploying Glean. But the second benefit that you get is that, you know, an organization or an agency could start with a use case of 10,000 people. And they don't have to take on the additional administrative overhead of worrying about role-based access control and managing permissions, you know, at the user level, because Glean inherently is doing that for you. And it's something that shows very, very nicely when we work to test things out in a pilot with a lot of our customers. So there's multiple benefits from there, but I think ultimately what it comes down to is you want a low risk, high return approach to generative AI, and out of the box, Glean is providing that. While you were talking, Simon, I actually went and asked a follow-up question around this ECAS topic here of what was needed for an electronic filing. And again, what Glean is doing here is it's providing me with very specific answers here in a very organized approach. And so it's highlighting 5 different components that we would need to do as electronic filing. And again, it's starting to cite our homework. So those were a couple specific, you know, use cases here around things within the Fed space. I wanted to show you the powers and just kind of maybe tease out the art of the possible here, because there is some cool things that you can do. So I'm going to start a new chat. And this is more specific and generic, but I'm going to use it from something that I do on a regular basis. So I'm going to kick this off. And I'm actually asking Glean to create me a table. And I'm asking it to include a link to our master software agreement, our non-disclosure agreement, security FAQ, our SOC 2 Type 2 document, and then describe and then include a description in a column for each of these documents. And so what's really cool about this is not only did it do it, but down here, I have, unfortunately, they provided context, does not include a direct link, and that's very purposeful. It's back to your permissions comment there, Simon, is that right now we need to go get sign off and authority from our security team specifically before we release our SOC 2 Type 2 document, because we need to be under a non-disclosure agreement. So this is not something that they're just going to allow me to provide to any customer. And it's due to how we have things permissioned. And so it's a really great example. However, our MSA, our mutual disclosure agreement, you know, our security FAQ, you can see that it's provided the links here. It's providing the underlying homework of where all this is going from. And it's gone and created this table. And I could simply come down here and copy this, and I could insert this into an email. Or maybe I have Glean Assistant write the email. Let's try this. I've got one I set up a little while ago for us. We'll see if we can get a follow-up email for Susan over at Acme Corp to write. So again, this is just kind of some of the creative things that you can do. And I've heard a customer say, really, I'm only limited by my imagination of what Glean Assistant can potentially start doing for me here. So again, we have our Acme Corp Glean proposal. We have some notes. We have a mutual action plan. So we have a lot of different items that we can. And so we can see here, you know, hi, Susan, I hope this message finds you well. You know, I want to follow up on our previous conversation, how we can support your initiatives. Where is this grabbing it from? It's grabbing it from, you know, our meeting notes. And so what I've done here is I've probably got myself 90% of the way on a follow-up call, you know, after initial meeting with Acme Corp. And I can copy and paste this, put this in Outlook, put this into maybe Gmail, and make a few quick edits. And so a process that used to take my sales team 20 to 30 minutes after initial call is taking them a minute or two. And that's time saved. So we're moving through our sales cycles more efficiently, and we're providing a better service and outcome to our clients.
And really Ryan, I think it's important to note at this time that this is the power of having that research assistant in place, because it's helping to do the mundane task in terms of drafting the information. But there's also that final human touch that happens where the human goes in and approves it, makes the final edits before it goes out. So there is kind of that extra layer of not getting rid of the human. And although you can automate these if you wanted to, there's typically a human intervention that's allowed so that you can edit and approve it before it goes out as well.
Kerry, that's a fantastic point. I think Glean shares that vision with Turbo Federal, where we want to leverage AI and generative AI to complement and to accelerate and to enhance the knowledge worker or the employee. It's not to replace the individual. It's not to replace the intelligence and the IP that they bring to their roles, but it's to take the mundane things and make them really short, or to remove them at all, so that they can focus on the higher priority tasks. Yeah. And it's very well said. Good point.
Yeah, and I just think this is going to just transform knowledge management as a whole, especially across the government. And that's what we're looking forward to doing as a service integrator. And also, one of the things that we can do with Glean is with the APIs is custom data connectors. So some of the agency audiences that are watching this demo may not see their apps mentioned or their case management systems mentioned in those list of connected apps. So that's where Turbo can come in and extend Glean's capability to connect in a case management system or some database, and bring that data also into Glean and maintain those permissions. So if that's the part of the knowledge that the agency or office wanted to include into the Glean corpus. So imagine having an AI assistant like what Ryan just showed, but helping a case management worker get answers to case management questions, and tracking a case, finding out what the status is. So a lot of agencies have that information in systems that are not yet modernized. They some have homegrown systems and so forth. So pulling that information into a system like Glean can save so much time for the end users of those systems. So that's something that Turbo can assist with, is extending that Glean functionality. So if there's not a connector there that you see, that's where Glean can come in, or Turbo can come in.
That's what made Glean really excited to start to work on this partnership with Turbo Federal. It's not just the experience that your team brings, but it's the expertise to know the use cases and then to help us build where maybe we don't have something natively built. And that's a win-win really for the customer. And that's what we're looking to achieve. And that's why we loved, this partnership and kind of going down that path.
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes an office has a question, a user has a question, and the answer is not just from one source. The answer is in several siloed systems. It's not in one SharePoint, system. It's not in one team system. It's in several systems that have all their separate access control restrictions, and a lot of those systems are not communicating with one another. So we have ways to build a connector into all those different systems and bringing them into Glean so that you could go to one place to answer a question, which has an answer from several different systems blended together to give you the complete answer. So that's what I'm really excited about in our partnership with Glean, is taking that that extra 10 to 20% of customization to really make this fit into an agency.
Right, and you're correct about that, Simon. I think a very relevant example is where we were just featuring information that's publicly available from the DOJ, Department of Justice. And I think it's important to note that with over 40 agencies ranging from the FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals, Attorney General, you can incorporate data from those disparate sources to complete a single search and get back relevant information from all of those silos, as you noted earlier, and even incorporate external data from the U.S. courts, federal courts, for example. And that way you get a complete answer, versus just a siloed answer, which may not be accurate for what the question is really asking.
Exactly, and it can also extend out to public interfaces as well. So public facing government websites, we can set up a widget on there, so have Glean on the back end, pulling that data, pulling answers for the public, rather than just like static, frequently asked questions on a page. We can hook up a Glean corpus of data that's connected into Glean, and then extend that through the client side out to a public facing website, or so multiple ways to extend that access out to the public. So it's more so than just being an internal tool. It can also help the public as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me, guys. This has been a pleasure, and really excited about this partnership, and we're here to assist as needed.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Well, thank you, Ryan. On behalf of Turbo, we really appreciate your time and effort in helping us put this together.
Thank you, Kerry.
So